Hello and welcome to another episode of Disc and Dice. This is episode 23. My name is Tim, and with me, as always, are my co-hosts Paul
Hello, Timmy.
and JT.
Hello, Timmy and Paul.
JT, you weren't here for our last episode. I trust you've been doing something productive with your time.
Yes, outside of study and getting ready for an house expansion, which is the reason I couldn't really make the last one, have been doing a fair bit of gaming, particularly in Star Wars: The Old Republic, which I've recently gotten back into.
Sorry,
I
JT. What?
I swear that you said house expansion.
Yeah,
then
yeah.
I'm like,
Is that what you
I'm like,
said?
you're downloading a
Inspection.
DLC for your home.
Inspection.
Right. Okay.
Did you buy the season pass for your home, or are you just kind of
So-
like seeing if it piques your interest as they drop?
Well, our real estate agent actually works on a loot box mechanic, so we never really know what we're going to get week to week here. So
You're like, oh, another toilet, far
Yeah.
out.
yeah, there's a fair few things wrong. We need to, we're just waiting for it to pop up in the gambling mechanics of this whole thing. So
So now you're constantly dismantling it down into resources. So you've got like heaps of ceramic just in the house.
that's right. Yes, it's
Mhm.
exactly how it works.
Hey, speaking of loot box mechanics, we're gonna. I thought it might be worth mentioning this because it's come up now. We're obviously at PAX over the weekend, or Timmy and I were, and Timmy and I bought a mystery box of board games and card games. So you get the idea from Tim's reaction straight away there. So basically, a few retailers there were selling these loot boxes basically of tabletop stuff, and they cost like $50, and some places said you got a certain amount of value, other places didn't say much about them. And on the Saturday night we decided to buy one of these, and it was straight up a scam basically. Like, the whole thing was just filled with absolute crap that was massively out of date, or was just things that they clearly have not been able to get rid of for
total garbage.
Yeah, for probably years. Like JT, for example, there's like a Minecraft book. It's like a guide to Minecraft that's like 6 years old, so it's completely useless because Minecraft is constantly updated and changed. So it's
And probably under new ownership now.
right. Yeah, this is from like the Mojang era before it was bought by Microsoft. So completely useless, of no value to anyone. But like, that's one of the things they threw in there, along with just a bunch of like almost like giveaway merchandising crap. Like,
They basically weren't board games. There was like maybe one thing in there that you could consider a game.
Right.
The other thing was someone trying to cash in on charades, and the other thing was like there's like a child's toy gun thing that shoots fake money, and it's called Shoot the Loot, and whoever catches the most money wins. Like it. Oh my goodness.
So it's like a crappy show bag from a show.
That's exactly what
even
it was
worse.
Like. It was a
It's
show
even
bag.
more expensive.
It's a show bag
It's
where
a-
you don't know that it's full of crap. You
Yeah, we
think
spent-
there's something of value.
We spent $50 on it, and I reckon that we did not get $50 of value. Here's the thing. The place we originally wanted to get the boxes from, and they sold out real early, there were all these boxes that were like $50, and it said specifically $150 worth of value in there. So that sounds quite good, yeah? But they sold out, so we went, oh, well, you know what? We'll go and ask these other people what the value of their boxes are. And we kind of got over there, and we got a little bit distracted, like shaking the boxes and being like, oh, I wonder what's in this one, that we forgot to ask that, which was our downfall, because but they didn't know what was in there anyway, allegedly.
Yeah.
But this first place that we were going to go to that sold out early, on Reddit, people were posting what they got in it, and there were like proper amazing games in there, like Catan, Carcassonne. One person claims to have got a copy of Gloomhaven, which
Wow.
is massive and very expensive, and so that is. But the boxes were big enough; they could have done it. So
yeah, we were not pleased with the way that went.
You would have got better value from just going to the pokies, I think.
the lesson we learned from this PAX was, if you see something you're after, and it seems like a good bargain. You should buy it straight away because there were a couple of times that Paul or I went, "Oh, we'll come back so we don't have to carry that," and then missed out.
Yeah, there was a big 50% sale on Keyforge, which we talked about on the pod before, and then like by the next day they had sold out of everything, and I missed out on that. So yeah, I second that recommendation or that tip from Timmy.
But
So
oh, sorry.
Oh no, that's fine. I was actually just wanting to ask. So since I wasn't there this year, I was curious as to. I mean, you don't have to go into too much detail, but was the layout of the exhibition center roughly the same, where the board games and sort of more physical activities were towards the back, and then you obviously have the show. I can't remember what it's called. The floor in the middle.
So the expo hall and then the showroom at the back, and they were identical, man.
Okay.
You went last year. Even the layout of the expo hall was pretty much exactly the same. Like Nintendo was in the same spot, PlayStation was in the same spot. The only things that changed were like obviously there wasn't a new Spider-Man game today, so that was replaced with the new Avengers game was where that was last year. So, but
Right.
if we chat about it at all, it's exactly how you're picturing it.
Cool. Just wanted to make sure.
Yeah. Now, speaking of PAX, though, that kind of took up a lot of our usual what we've been playing time. But Paul, you and I stumbled across a couple of different board games at PAX that might be worth covering off.
We did, yeah, and it really was stumbled across for the first one we're going to talk about here, which is a game called Decrypto. This wasn't on our radar at all. I think maybe the company that makes it, their booth was something you were interested in because there was another game that we didn't actually play that was there. But yeah, we kind of were just by chance recommended this by a friend who just looked at it and thought it was cool. And we ended up doing a kind of a demo game of it, and we liked it so much that we picked it up. Both of us bought it actually. So, so it is called Decrypto, and basically it's a code-breaking game where you play in two teams and you need to guess your opponent's code before they guess yours. And it's sort of a race against time because you're also trying to guess your own code. Because it works a bit like Code Names, which is a game we've mentioned a few times before, with like a codemaster giving clues to your teammates. And so I really got those same kind of vibes from this game where you're kind of given clues to your team and you're hoping that they get the reference and that the clue's not too close to one of the other words and they stuff the whole thing up because they need to guess their own code correctly, but then also decipher the other team's code.
Yeah.
And I really I really enjoyed like I said before, the race against time aspect of it. So it's not just a case of, we've got to get our words right and hope they get theirs wrong. It's that we have to get ours right. We also have to draw the links between the clues we're getting for their code, and we have to break their code. You have to break it twice to win, basically. We have to break their code twice before they break ours twice. And towards the end of the games, like it gets pretty good once you've played a couple of times and you sort of understand how the mechanics work. And you're balancing these things of my team has to get our clues right, but I don't want to give clues that are so easy that the other team can just instantly cross-reference them and get our code.
Mm-hmm.
So it's got some of those elements of, say, Dixit or Spyfall, where you're trying to discover things, but obviously not give away too much at the same time.
Yeah, it's about finding a balance, and it's interesting, Paul, that you've mentioned twice it being a race against time because I didn't experience time or feeling like I was running out of time being a factor in any of the games.
I guess I should say just a race against the other team. I guess that's incorrect idiom.
But the game itself, it definitely has that Code Names vibe. One advantage I would say it has over Code Names is each full game of Code Names, only one person on each team gets to be the clue giver or the code master, as it's called in Code Names. But you take it in turns in Decrypto, which is cool. So like, there can be up to 8 rounds in total, and each time it's a new round, someone else on your team plays as the person giving you the clues. So everybody gets a turn, which is pretty fun. So you get to guess and you get to give clues, and it keeps it pretty fresh.
So I'm sorry, Tim. I'm just looking at the the pictures of it now, because I didn't really know too much about it outside of you guys just mentioning it earlier. So is there any digital aspect to this at all? Because the pictures on their board game site look like it's on a computer screen. Or
Nah,
did I just okay?
so the physical aesthetic of the game is probably what caught the attention of Angelo, who mentioned it to us, and we went to find it because it kind of looks like an old 1980s kind of, when computers were built into walls kind of thing.
Yes,
It's
like an
kind of
ambiguous interface sort of look.
yeah, yeah. And the way it works is you've got like
Okay,
you've got like a board, like a standee in front of you that's got 4 screens on it, and it's just red kind of cellophane, and you slide the cards into the 4 slots, and the cards are they're like coded, but when you slide them into those slots, you can read them. So that's a nice touch. It's like
that's actually really cool.
yeah, yeah.
It is very cool. Like the demo version we played was like it was kind of like a big cardboard version to, so I guess,
It
kind
was
of make all of the things very clear to the players. And
mm,
I thought that's what we were buying when we got the when we got the actual game. But then they kind of explained it to us, and like it really is very cool. Like, just even the
yeah.
fact that you like not being able to read the code words properly until you slide them in. It's like, yeah, it's the aesthetic and the kind of design of the actual piece is really nice.
And I'm actually just looking at the, that interface sort of piece with the switches and whatnot on it. So that's like a full sort of model. It looks like
It's
with
just a
like a
cardboard. It's like a diorama kind of thing. It's just got a
okay,
couple of
yeah,
cardboard feet and sits up straight.
okay. So the one I'm looking at on the internet has looks like it's got actual switches on it.
Nah,
I'm
this is
not
all just
sure.
cardboard.
Maybe someone made
Not
a custom
That's
Decrypto
what I was thinking.
interface.
But that's sort of what's just sort of jotted my mind as somewhat of a maker myself who's into modeling and things. That you could take this really far and get really into it. Like in the same sort of way, someone might get into a Dungeons and Dragons night or a murder mystery night where people dress up.
hmm
Um, you could take this to the extreme and make like a full sort of get everybody dressing up in front of this little sort of board that someone's maybe made up and make it like really really legit. But no, it looks really really cool. I'm really looking forward to playing that sometime.
Yeah, it's one of those games that it definitely we learnt trying to explain it a couple of times that it is very simple once you start playing it,
hmm
but when you just sit there and try to explain the rules to someone, it can be a little bit difficult. So anyone who picks this up and starts playing it, I would recommend like a training round. Like rather than sitting there and trying to explain it to everybody, go, well, the first thing we do is give ourselves clues, and so let's do that step and just kind of move through it because it's really obvious when you go step by step. But we learnt by trying to explain it a few times that giving everybody all the rules straight away, it seems confusing, but it's a pretty simple game and it's kind of like a rock solid mechanic. So just jump into it.
Yeah, the other thing I was going to mention about it, we're not getting bogged down in rules here, but you kind of have words that you use to give clues. They're just sort of like I'm trying to think of the phrase I'm looking for here. The words are just kind of like reference points that you use to give clues. Um, I really liked that aspect of it because when we were sort of playing, or at least having explained at first, Timmy, we were kind of concerned about, if you play this game a lot, you'll just learn all the words and things like that. But it really doesn't work like that. But there's a cool sort of extra rule where if the game ends in a draw, as a tiebreaker, you can have a go at guessing the words that your opponent has on their board, which is normally not that important. And I was surprised at how successful really everyone we played with was at guessing words that could have been any words at all. We have no sort of reference of what they could be because we just started playing the game with just sort of 2 or 3 keywords. Like, we pretty regularly got those right, which I was very surprised at, and I thought that was really a bit of fun. Like, we sort of had this we sort of would do this thing where we never actually had to use the tiebreaker, but when the game finished and one team won, we would always then have a go at guessing the other team's words afterwards because it was just kind of an extra step that was really quite fun.
Yeah, that part was like not actually part of the game and was
Yeah,
one of the most fun aspects for me. Like, even because even once you've lost, right? Like, my team lost, that sucks. But hey, can I try and guess your words? And you
right,
get like
right.
2 out of 4 or 3 out of 4, and you still feel like you've accomplished something. So, yeah,
Yeah, yeah. I also really like I just like the code breaking mechanic in general. Like the fact that you're kind of physically writing on a piece of paper and you're kind of cross referencing words from previous rounds. Uh,
mm,
it feels very puzzle solvy in a way.
yeah,
Like you are given little clues and you don't have much to work with, and then as the game progresses, you get a little bit more information each time, and you're sort of going back to previous things and being like, oh, was this really the answer in the first round when we thought it was this, and things like that. It's really good. In terms of people who might be looking at this game, we played with 4, and it was still really fun. But I think maybe it's a bit like Code Names, where uh, sort of around 6 is probably a really good number for this, because then you've got a person giving clues, and then at least 2 people who can kind of discuss between them about what the clues mean, which I just personally I find that's really the sweet spot for these kind of games.
yeah, I agree. Like, it's that this kind of game is like if you're having a board games night, it's kind of a good starter game because the games are quick. You can play a couple once everybody kind of plays one and understands it. You can play with 4 people. You could realistically play with like 10, 12, like as many people want to be on a team as they want, really. Um, might start getting a bit hectic, too many chefs in the kitchen, but like you could absolutely just keep adding people to it if you really wanted to. Like, it's that kind of game.
Yeah, it definitely has that
Um,
kind of open-ended expansion in terms of numbers like that. I guess,
yeah.
yeah, our sort of moving on from Decrypto, I find the I find that our PAX these days tends to be more board game and tabletop heavy than
Mm,
ever before. Like, we
yeah.
kind of go to PAX and there's so many video games, all these panels and stuff. But some of the most fun I have at PAX is always just sitting in the tabletop area trying new stuff. So this year was no different. We did plenty of that. And I think, yeah, you've got some things to mention as well, Timmy, that you played at PAX.
Yeah, absolutely. I guess like PAX is good because it's got that board game library, and it's a good time to like trial games that you might otherwise not have bought because it's hard to know what you're getting. But one game that my girlfriend actually bought based on the cute packaging and the recommendation of a friend was one called Organ Attack, and we played a few games of that. And this one is a really simple game that you could realistically play with the whole family. Like, it says family friendly on there, and it's pretty simple. Cute little pictures. Everybody gets dealt out a number of body organs, and the last, and you're trying to knock out each other's organs. The last person to have an organ wins. Really simple. It's kind of like, you just every card you play is like an attack on someone else's organ, and then there are some ways to heal yourself or head off attacks, but it's really straightforward. The cards are all like cute little cartoon versions of your organs, like the really cute one that kind of got us to drop some dollars on it was your gallbladder holding these little stones that said I made these. Where if and that's on the gallstones card, so like obviously if you have the gallbladder card, someone can give you gallstones, and then you're in trouble.
It's
So that
actually
they're
one
really
that
cute.
it's actually one that Talia, my girlfriend, has been eyeing off for a little bit. I'm not sure where she heard about it from,
Hmm.
but as a
What?
nurse, she's
Yeah.
very interested in playing that. So
And I'm not surprised because one of the like the pull quotes on the box was that like it's lots of fun and it's really cute, but it's surprisingly accurate. Like, if you wanted
yes,
to teach kids about how the body works, you've got the trachea, the esophagus, the stomach, the bowels, the liver, the spleen, and then it says on each of those cards what that organ does or what it's responsible for. And then once you give somebody, the affliction or the disease or whatever it might be, it explains why it's doing that, like what the gallbladder is doing when it creates gallstones, etc., etc.
Another thing that I really liked about this one is it's got that real party game vibe where people maybe kind of lose track of what's actually in their best interests in terms of winning the game, and they just get pissed off at each other, and you get a lot of like revenge attacks going on.
Mhm.
So someone
Yeah.
takes one of your organs out, and then you're just like, well, screw that, I'm taking one of yours out next turn, even if there's like strategically a better option to take after that. I think we played with like 6 or 7 people, so it's kind of reasonably large group, and it's pretty chaotic in a really good way. And there's just sort of attacks flying around the table, and everyone's like yelling, like take this guy out, like he's close to winning. And some people are doing it, some people are ignoring it, and it's got that aspect which I think it's the kind of game that, like Timmy, you kind of already said this, but this is the kind of thing you can bust out with people who are not into real hardcore stuff, because the rules are very, very straightforward. It's kind of, everything's on the cards, and it can be very easily understood. It's quite short as well. Like we played through, I think, sort of 2 or 3 times in like maybe an hour, so it's pretty quick. You burn through it, and lots of randoms as well, which I like, in that the best player doesn't always win. That kind of thing as well. That like I said before, that people kind of ignore strategy. I think even if you're paying attention to strategy, it's just kind of all over the place that anyone can, when the dust has settled at the end of a game of Organ Attack, it's kind of just like, oh, I happen to win because somehow I came out of that absolute chaos with 1 organ left.
That's absolutely it. Like, I think that revenge kind of aspect you were talking about is heaps fun. Like everybody, it's like Shayla decided, you know what, as long as I beat Tim, I'm happy. So even though I'm sitting there going, what are you doing? Like Butters across the table is about to like clean up. He's got so many organs. I'm not gonna make it to the end of this game. She's like, nah, you're getting kidney stones. I'm sorry about it. And that's really fun, right? Like that kind of gameplay. And it's one of those games that, like, the more animated you get with it, the more fun it is, right? At first we were kind of going, oh, I guess I'll do this to Paul. Here you go, you can have this one. But then by the end of it, it was like scalding hot coffee on the tongue. There you go. Like everyone was like really getting into it. So
And just with that sort of gameplay, especially with card and board games, Timmy, one game that I'd love to play again with a group of people that know each other better is Gloom, because I think the first and only time I played it was with you, but some other people we didn't really know too well, and it, some of the descriptions of how people died was a bit stinted, and I think that it could have been a lot better with a closer, tight knit group of friends.
it's funny you mentioned that because I'm getting ready to move houses at the moment, and so I'm packing up all my stuff. And while I was doing that, I stumbled across Gloom, and I was also showing Shayla all of my different board games as I was kind of packing them up. And Gloom was one that I went, oh, hey, I haven't looked at this one in ages. You might like this one. And I explained the rules of it. And she's really keen to give that a go. So chances are, in an upcoming episode, it might have been freshly played, and you are going to hear all about it.
Yep.
But before we move completely on from Organ Attack, I just wanted to touch on, much like we said with Decrypto, the presentation being really nice. We mentioned the cards are really cute for Organ Attack, but the box for it is actually a fake medical journal. It's like this nice blue and silver book that can sit on your shelf like a book, and
Very cool.
Yeah, it looks like a medical journal. So again, for your girlfriend Talia, the nurse, she's going to love that.
And what's better is that, you don't have to buy a special edition for that. Just the standard edition comes with that. So that's good.
That's exactly right.
Exactly.
So now I took up most of my time at PAX with board games, and some card games were had as well, but nothing we haven't spoken about many times on the podcast. But Paul, I believe that you looked into a few different video games. So would you like to tell us about the disc portion of Disc and Dice found at PAX?
Yeah, so for people who attend PAX, they might be familiar with the PAX Rising section, which is like the indie game part of PAX. So you have all your kind of big publishers there, like Nintendo and Xbox or Microsoft and everything, showing off those big games. But then you have this sort of sea of indies that all have a little booth to themselves. And I always like just kind of wandering through there and seeing what catches my eye. And I did that on the Sunday at PAX this year. And I came across a few things that were quite interesting, which I don't have heaps to say about because given the setting, you kind of you have a bit of a play for maybe 5 or 10 minutes. on these games, and then you sort of move on. So this is kind of just my indie list from PAX 2019. The first game was one called Feather, which I got real flower vibes. That game where you just kind of float around as a flower and not really do much. This is kind of the same. It's just a relaxing flying game where you play as an eagle and you just fly around an island. And it's got this really nice kind of stylized art style and really kind of relaxing music and sound design. And I thought all that stuff was really cool, but I talked to the guy who is one of the developers of it, and he said that they are specifically giving sort of no objectives or no direction in what you do. And as much as I enjoyed kind of flying around for it in 5 or 10 minutes, I did think that I don't know if like I could play something like that just for the sake of it, if you know what I mean. Like even just to have some objectives which are optional, so someone can play it for relaxation if they want. They described it as they wanted to make a game that was like a walk in the park. And for the little bit I did play of it, it is very cool. You get a really nice sense of kind of height and scale if you fly all the way up, and you can kind of dive down, and you can sort of go just below the water and then shoot up out from the surface again. It all kind of plays really nicely. But I'm really interested to see where that goes, because I feel like it kind of needs a bit more direction to make it, I don't know, for it to be worth people playing. I don't know if you guys have played games like Flower and things like that. Like I've played Journey, which I think was the same developers.
Yeah, I played Journey.
Yeah, Journey is also very kind of like ambling like that, but you are always sort of moving forward. You know, you're kind of going through levels, even if they are a little bit sort of abstract. So yeah, I'm interested to see where that one goes.
That's an interesting change of pace, because I'm just looking, Paul, that the developer who is Samurai Punk actually did Screen Cheat as well.
Oh, okay. So it's the same developer who's doing Feather now.
Yes, from what I can tell from their Steam page, it's actually the people who did Screen Cheat, which is interesting because that's sort of a very different kind of game.
That's completely different. One like competitive multiplayer to like completely freeform relaxation game.
They're covering all their bases.
Yeah. Yeah, that's I didn't know that at all. But yeah, I'm keen to see where that one goes. Like I said, because the gameplay in it is quite fun. Something else that I played, which was really completely different, which I don't know if I'd say I played. I'll explain it a little bit in a second. It's a game called Broken Roads, which is an old school CRPG that is set in Australia after a post-apocalyptic event. So you're kind of out in the Red Sands outback on what looks like a sort of outback station. And it's going to have sort of all the things you expect from an old PC RPG, with like the top-down isometric viewpoint, turn-based combat, sort of moral choices, all that kind of thing. But the real selling point for this one, besides the setting, which I thought was really cool, like I don't think I've played an old school RPG like that with an Australia setting, which will be interesting. Their big system that they were kind of showing off here was the morality system. So rather than choosing between kind of good or evil when you have choices in the game, they have sort of a kind of circular morality spectrum, and there's 4 quadrants on it which conform to, I can't remember the names of them, but they're sort of things like, you know, like selfishness and selflessness, but they have way better philosophical names. But the way it works is that as you make choices throughout the game, you kind of have a piece of that circular morality sphere which you are allowed to pick choices within. So what it's basically trying to do is that if you make, say, selfless choices over and over again in the game, you cannot suddenly flip to the complete opposite end of the moral spectrum, that you have to be consistent in your choices. And you can kind of move from, say, like selfless to selfish, but you have to do that step by step. You have to kind of slowly make increasingly more selfish choices, and it will kind of move your section of the morality diagram round to the other side. And I really like the idea of this because it's a bit like forced role playing. You can't just min-max things. So if you have a choice and you're like, oh, that is clearly the best choice for my character, but you've been choosing this kind of moral choice in everything up until now, then it's blocked off to you. Then you're not able to choose that. And I think this is really intriguing as a way to handle choice in games.
I've actually never really seen a system done like this before as well. I mean, there might be some things that are similar, but usually it always almost hinges on you picking something and then going with what you've picked. Whereas, well, I should reiterate, picking something and then having that be the mainstay, and then you being able to choose something else regardless of it, of, you know, the choices you've made. But like you said, the forced role-playing aspect, I guess, is kind of the best way to describe it from what I can see. And it looks really cool. It means that your actions probably definitely do have consequences. You can't just sort of, you know, wing it and then choose to do something completely different down the road.
Yeah, you can't kind of like flip-flop between things. Like, I like the idea that if you choose to be one kind of character and then you decide, like if you choose to be good and then you decide you want to be evil, you've got to go through that process of getting to evil. You can't just like flip and be like, you know, I'm picking all the red renegade choices in Mass Effect now or something like that.
But I feel like, I mean, to some degree, it has been done a little bit, right? Like, if you take Red Dead as an example, you've got the slider that slowly moves to one end, depending on whether you've been good or bad or neutral. And like, even games as old as Fable and Fable 2 did the same thing, right? You would grow up to look one way and have certain kinds of abilities if you kept doing evil stuff. But I guess this kind of takes it a step further and actually limits your future choices, which is would that be the big point of difference, rather than just being like, you're all the way, the slider's all the way this way, and if you want to get it back up, you'll have to do good stuff. It kind of says, well, you've gone down this path, and so your choices are now limited.
Yeah, it's I guess I don't know how we'll explain it before, but don't think of it as linear. So it's not like you move to the left and then you move back to the right. It's like a big circular diagram. So you're never far down the path and you have to work your way back. You are always just moving around the circle, if that makes sense.
Right.
So yeah, it's worth maybe looking up sort of a picture of what it looks like. But the way it works then is that you're never kind of locked into it. So it never says like, you've done all these things, you can never go back from this. In an individual situation, yes, you won't be able to choose a choice which is opposite to the morality that you've established for your character, but you can always kind of shift the dial around, if that makes sense.
So it works a little bit like a Venn diagram, basically.
Yeah, it is a bit like that. It's a bit like a Venn diagram, or maybe a bit like it's a bit like a pie chart in a way, with like, and the morality is divided into like, I guess that's the other thing. It's more divided than just good and evil. It has kind of 4 quadrants for different kinds of philosophical morality, and then within each one you have like numerous little choices that are available to you that kind of shift it left or right around the circle. But yeah, like, that's in terms of playing that game. The stuff they had at PAX, they said before that, it's playable at PAX. To be totally honest, this really wasn't a playable game. It was nothing more than really sort of a proof of concept. Like, it was basically one outback station. You could run around it and talk to people, but your choices didn't really change anything, and there was no combat. So the game, I think, is still more than a year away. And there really wasn't a lot to see there in terms of actually playing it. But, you know, that morality system kind of piqued my interest, and I'm a big fan of this kind of old school RPG. So all of that plus the Australia setting has me intrigued about where this game goes. But yeah, we'll have to see.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting to see like different mechanics, like especially when it comes to like the gray areas of choice and morality popping up, right? Because as fans of The Witcher, like that gray area was something that both you and I have spoken about a lot in terms of something we really are drawn to and makes the game more interesting than some of its peers. So yeah, more of this, please.
Agreed. The last one that I wanted to mention here is something that it's not even really a game at this point. It was more of augmented reality tech demo that was being shown there. It was called Moving Marvels, and it's an app that is made by, well, I think it's made by this team in conjunction with this artist who basically, it's hard to describe actually. Their booth at PAX was basically a series of artworks set up on pedestals and then a bunch of tablets with the app on there. And when you hold up the tablet and look at the artwork through the app, it kind of comes to life and it becomes sort of 3D and you can rotate around it. It sort of starts moving and it kind of breaks apart. You know those like old cross-section books that they'd have for like Star Wars vehicles and things like that I'm sure we all like, you know, got into? Some of them are a bit like that. The artworks that the guy had done were all very sort of steampunky and fantastical, but they would kind of come to pieces and split apart into all their various components, and it looked really cool, and you could kind of interact with it and grab a bit and sort of move it around. It all looked very cool. There was no real sort of application of it there for people to use, but I was chatting to one of the guys on the team, and he was talking about how they see it as sort of having educational purposes. You could kind of teach people or kids how like a machine would work by sort of you hover this over and then it all comes apart into its pieces, or you could have a printed book and then you use your tablet to read the book and all the things kind of come to life, which, you know, again, it's kind of aimed at younger audiences, but it's kind of a cool idea. But the thing that really caught my eye was that he showed me how you hold the tablet up and, you know, the image sort of comes to life, but you can kind of grab a part of the image, hold on to it, and then kind of move your tablet across to the artwork next, like on the next pedestal along, and take that piece with you to that. And he was talking about how there's kind of potential here for like a puzzle game. And the first thing I'm thinking of is the kind of things we've discussed here before, the sort of puzzle box games like The Room and Birdcage and things like that you could have like a picture that you can kind of hover your tablet or phone over. You can kind of move the pieces around and interact with them, but then you can maybe like take a piece of it and then move it over to a different picture. So I have no idea how this game would work. This is just entirely theoretical, but just this kind of AR tech in conjunction with one of those puzzle games was something I thought was really interesting. So again, this is all like early days stuff, but it was really cool tech.
Yeah. Now, is this tech? Are they developing it and they're using it for like their games and stuff specifically, and it's exclusive, or are they hoping that this is going to be like an engine that other developers can pay to use and create whatever they want using it? Like there might be somebody wants to use it to make an interactive book that they can sell using this tech, and someone else wants to make an app like The Room, except you're moving around your actual lounge room looking at the different pieces. Like, do you know what their goal is?
The vibe I got from them was that they were just developing the tech, so that they were kind of showing the tech off here in the hope that someone else could take this and run with it or something like that. Yeah, like the artwork they had there was all like original, like done by sort of the lead artist on their team. So you know, there's clearly some kind of artistic leaning within that team. It's not just a 100% like tech focused thing. So it wouldn't surprise me if maybe like they do produce something out of this. But yeah, the guy I spoke to was saying that they were really excited about maybe seeing where other people could take this as well.
Just quietly, Timmy, an augmented reality version of The Room would be amazing.
Oh, yeah, that'd be incredible.
We can dream.
Maybe we won't have too much longer by the sounds of things.
Yeah, there you go.
Now, while we were chatting PAX, I'm sorry, I promised JT we'll let you have a turn soon. I just thought of one other game that I played that I thought was worth mentioning quickly, and that was a prototype for a Metal Gear Solid board game.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah, it's from IDW Games, and I noticed it because it was next to a big Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles poster. but Shayla is really into Metal Gear, so I thought, oh hey, have a look at this. And as we wandered over, the guy just happened to be setting up a new game, and there were 2 other people, and there were 4 playable spots. And he was like, "Do you guys want to play?" And so we sat down, and it was kind of like a typical dungeon crawler, where like you're playing as some of the characters from Metal Gear Solid, and you're trying to steal some tech or some secrets or some files, some data, and then get to the exit. You all have your turn, and then you draw cards, and the guards all move autonomously. It seemed like a pretty standard dungeon crawler, but it was a lot of fun in terms of how it went and the different abilities, and the mechanics seem solid, even though they're still working it out. So I signed up to a mailing list, and perhaps once that one comes out, I'll talk a bit more once it's definitely how it's going to be. But it seems like if you are a big Metal Gear Solid fan, this is a really faithful kind of adaptation. And I don't always like licensed products, but this one felt really good. So maybe keep an eye out for that one.
And you said the playtime on that was relatively short as well, wasn't it? For sometimes those kind of dungeon crawl things can really drag out for kind of hours. But this one looked like it was pretty like swift in terms of how it plays.
Yeah, we played through a like a scenario, I guess you'd call it, pretty quickly, like half an hour, maybe
Hmm.
40 minutes at a stretch. But he did mention though, like as we were leaving, all of the bosses that you're familiar with from like the first 3 games are going to be featured in this. So it makes me feel like normally if we had gotten that data and got to the exit, it would have moved to the next thing, or maybe just the bosses feature in other scenarios. It didn't seem like there was any impetus for anything extra to come into the game, and there was no boss in the game we played. So I wonder if we've just played a condensed version or just part of a full game,
Hmm.
or whether you can choose a scenario that has a boss. It's unclear to me at this point because it's still being developed. But that bit that we played was really quick and it was satisfying. So if that's the case, I would happily play just that long and finish a little thing, and then maybe next time we play something with the boss.
Okay.
It
Yeah.
it mentions as well, Tim, just on the publisher website, that there's some kind of dynamic AI system. Was that implemented when you played the game?
When they say dynamic AI, do you know what they're referring to? Are they saying there's like an app that does stuff? 'Cause there was...
It doesn't say that, but it's what I would assume that that's maybe how they get the sandbox. It's saying that there's sandbox gameplay. Maybe, in the future they might bring in much the same way that was it Mansions of Madness, the 4th edition or the newer edition of that
the
has
second
an app.
edition.
The 2nd edition, sorry, has the app with it now that can sort of make the gameplay a little bit more dynamic. I'm wondering if maybe that was there, but
I would imagine what they're describing is after everybody has their turns, and like you as a player choose what your character does, and then it's all cooperative, so your teammates will choose what they do. I reckon probably what they're referring to is you have a big deck of cards that are for the guards, and you flip that over, and it has a whole bunch of different numbers on it. And it's like if you have alerted the guards to your presence, then you do this action, and it comes out at random. So it might be that they all move this far, and if they need to turn, they turn in this direction. Or if they're patrolling, they move 3 steps and they turn left if they can. Otherwise, they do whatever. So
right.
that might be what they're talking about. Like you never choose what the guards do unless they have equal options. So if it says move towards the last alert, and they can get to it in 2 different ways with the same amount of steps, you can choose which way they go. Apart from that, the deck of cards kind of tells you what to do with them.
Right.
And,
But I mean, that still would work just fine,
yeah, and I
given how
assume
you just described it.
yeah, you could describe that as AI, I suppose. You're not making the decision; they're moving for themselves based on a shuffled deck of cards. So,
Yes.
and you also have another deck of cards for the guards' reactions. If they come across an alert and you have since left, it tells you what they do in that.
I can't remember whether you mentioned this earlier to me, but did they give some idea of like how far off the full game was?
No, I think. Oh, okay. Actually, yes. They said Q1 next year, but I was unclear if he meant the first quarter of a calendar year or the first quarter of a financial year. So either between January and March or between July and September. But yeah, all right. JT, your turn. What you been doing?
I have been knee deep in hours played for Star Wars The Old Republic. I have gone back to it after a very long hiatus, and have, I forgot about that game for the longest time. And then I needed to play a MMO. I hadn't played one in ages. I missed, the just every aspect of that. I missed the grinding of MMOs, which was weird.
I get that.
But I've come back.
There's something like therapeutic and relaxing about just being
It
able
is.
to like grind away and not have to like pay attention to story or really like put all your attention in. I get
That's
it.
right. And I've really been enjoying it. Even though the player base is significantly smaller since when I first played it, which was basically at launch in, I don't even know when that would be. When would that have been? 2010? Maybe a bit after that, 2012 even? I'm not sure.
Yeah, I'm not sure.
Either way, it's been, the better part of, most of a decade. And even though the player base is lower, I'm not really noticing that as much of an issue. There's still hundreds and hundreds of people in any instance most of the time on the server that I'm on. And, even though there are other games like WoW that have a lot more people, I'd never really noticed the difference. So I'm really enjoying that. I've been, invited into a guild already, done some of the end game content. I'm at end game now, but still going through the story. So still a lot to do, but I'm really, really loving it. I like all the changes they have made, even though a lot of it does now come down to spending some of the in-game, real money for in-game items. But most of that is, um, I'm forgetting the word. I'm having a total mental blank. Cosmetic.
Right.
And that hasn't been much of an issue. And as a subscriber, I get some of the in-game currency anyway, every month. And so, it's never been much of a hindrance so far as I've been playing it. So yeah, long story short, I'm really enjoying it.
So you said you're at endgame. What level is endgame in Old Republic?
Endgame at the moment is level 70, though.
Okay.
It's to describe that as endgame from there on is slightly misleading because there's still the story arc for your character is still way longer than after you hit level 70. So, once I hit 70, I was still in like halfway through the first chapter of the Bounty Hunter story arc. And I think there's 3 chapters in total.
Right.
So I can do all the end game content. I'm doing all the things like, which is instead of earning normal experience, now I earn something called Command XP, which is like a new kind of experience points that doesn't level you up, but it levels you up with like better items. It gives you items every time you hit a new command level, and then you can buy better gear with that. So I'm at that level now, and I'm doing the high level flashpoints with my guild sometimes. And apart from that, I guess that's what you would call end game. But the storyline for me is still going on, which is great. Like I'm really, really surprised at how long that goes for, and it's still keeping my interest, firmly on my character's story arc, his decisions and things like that.
What's like you said you joined a guild, like what's the kind of end game stuff like in terms of playing with a group? Because I never got to end game, but when I played, I did some flashpoints. I never got to like the raid. I think their raids are called like operations or something, like the bigger group content. And I did a bunch of the PvP. I really loved that like hut ball that they had. It was like the sport PvP thing. I really enjoyed that. Is that stuff still active?
I'm not sure about the hut ball thing you're describing. I haven't seen that, but that being said, there's a lot of stuff in the interface that I would describe as cluttered, not necessarily in a bad way, but there's just a lot of things that can go easily missed if you're not looking for it.
Right.
So whether or not that's popped up somewhere and I just haven't seen it, I'm not sure. As for the guild stuff, it's really, really streamlined now. And so getting into groups with your guild is easy. I haven't done any operations because there's not normally that many people online at any one time, but they do organize stuff from time to time in advance. I haven't done that yet because I'm sort of on a different schedule to them by the looks of it. The other cool stuff that I really like about the guild is they've really, really enhanced how you interact with your other members. So, for instance, I'm not sure if you know, but in the game you can get things called strongholds, which is basically like it's like The Sims in the Old Republic, where you've got like a base or an apartment where you can basically make it look the way you want it to, show off items and things like that.
It's like player housing.
Player housing, except for the guild aspect, they've got that, so strongholds, but you can also get a guild flagship, which can actually travel to different systems and get different types of XP based on what objective it's going for. So they've really, really enhanced the way that you do things with your guild. It's not just a sort of a faceless entity where people come and meet. You can actually go and interact with the things that you're acquiring for the guild, be it like, you know, new weapons for the flagship or new rooms or items for it. You really feel like you're contributing to it instead of just being, you know, on a sheet with other people that says here's so and so on your guild, here's so and so on your guild. That's something that. Go on, sorry.
I was going to say that's something that's really cool. Like, that's the kind of thing that, just thinking about WoW, it's the thing that's been sort of like not even hinted at, but like the player base have wanted it for a long time, and Blizzard have kind of dipped their toe in the water of things like that. With like, they had garrisons in one expansion where you sort of had your own area that you got to upgrade and things like that, but it always kind of gets scrapped and they move away from it. I wonder whether, like, it's almost like the fact that because Old Republic has not been, you know, it has not been like the raging success that they would have liked it to be. I wonder whether that has meant they're able to be a bit more experimental and like try some of this stuff that WoW has always been hesitant about, because, you know, they don't want to split their player base and stuff like that. They don't want to like have people not be in the same area together. It sounds like they've been able to do some cool stuff here. I'm just like speculating, possibly because, you know, because the player base has shrunk, so they're just like, cool, we'll just do cool stuff then.
It could, yeah. I mean, that's, you know, possibly one explanation. I mean, the other thing that they've sort of done with that, with the way that you can move your flagship around and have the guild do these different objectives and get rewarded for it, is it's really funneled people to focus on playing the objective, and be rewarded for doing so. And that's something that, I mean, it seems like a no-brainer, and it's strange that WoW hasn't implemented something like that, because who doesn't want to just get rewarded for the cool things they do in the game? And this is doing that, but it's also bringing people together in their guild to sort of achieve these objectives, you know, with equal input from the users, instead of just doing a raid and having to organize a raid. Like I said, it's all been streamlined now, which is really, really good.
It sounds like it's a really good balance, because like retail WoW has the sort of over streamlined thing where it's so streamlined that you don't ever need to interact with another person. You can just kind of like cruise through it, and the game handles everything for you. And I think a couple of episodes ago I talked about what I like so much about WoW Classic is that it stripped all that away, and so you had to work with people. And I kind of didn't realize that I missed that until I realized like I had to work with people to get anything done. Then I was like, oh, this is really fun. Like not having the game do it all for me.
That's right, yeah. And I feel that the Old Republic, going back to it, it holds your hand where necessary, where you think it should, where it's logical to have your hand held, and that's primarily in the solo aspect for people who don't have a group, who don't have any sort of objectives other than just going through the story. It holds your hand, but in the best way possible, you know, by giving you a companion, with assisting you with, you know, going to those story quests and what have you, which is really good. However, the one thing that I'm not enjoying so much in the game, and this is almost certainly because it has a smaller player base, is the galactic market, which is basically the player-based economy trade network, is super fluctuating. Items rarely stay at the value that they're meant to be for more than a day or two. and I'll give you an example. You can have a high tier item that's worth millions of credits in the game, which is a lot of money. Literally just be bought out, and then someone else finds that same tier item but don't know what the value is or was, and there's no way to check, and then put the same item up for 5,000 credits.
Yeah,
And
right.
so when you go, so if someone's farmed a lot of these items or valuable items, or not even valuable items, things in the market will change drastically from day to day. There's a few things that don't, because they're so common that they've always got a baseline there. But for some some rare items, the baseline goes away when they're all sold out, and so that it resets to just whatever someone thinks it might be. So that's one problem I'm sort of struggling with in it. And the main thing that affects is if you're doing your crew skills, or the skills that you do in the game where you're like building armor or scavenging things that you want to sell on the trade network. It can affect how much and how quickly you can acquire high level gear that way. But other than that, it's not too bad. You can still make money other ways, and you're never really struggling to get money. But it's one thing that I noticed straight away that was just completely, I almost say that it's a bit broken, but that might change depending on the server you play on.
Yeah, I can see how that would be frustrating.
Yes. Other than the Old Republic, though, going down to smaller device scale, I have been playing Mario Kart Tour, which I know Timmy has mentioned on last week's podcast, but I wasn't actually aware of that because I didn't listen to it.
Yeah, so that makes me extra interested to know what you're
Yes.
going to say. I'm not going to tell you nothing.
Well,
I want
actually
your
wanted to.
unbiased opinions.
I really enjoy it. I enjoy it for the 10 or 15 minutes I play at a time. Though there's a lot of things that I don't really like about it. But as far as getting Mario Kart into the mobile platform, I think it's done an excellent job. The matchmaking system's great. You never have to wait to get into a match because there's always someone playing. I think it's just because of how accessible they've made it. The game's fun. I love all the characters, just the aesthetic of it. It's really, really cool. That being said, I kind of hate the control scheme. It gives you the option.
I'm getting a real feeling of deja vu here.
Oh, really? Yeah. Yeah. Timmy's mentioned it. It basically drives the car for you, but there's two different ways you can drive it. You can drive it by drifting or not drifting, and it's just, even though I've played enough to say that I'm getting pretty good at it, I still feel really clunky. Or, the controls feel real clunky.
Question number one, how the heck do you turn if you don't drift? From what I can see, it's all dragging your thumb. Like that, I also didn't like the control scheme and feel like Nintendo are yet to understand mobile games. But as far as I could turn, it was all as far as I could tell, or as far as I was concerned, is the two things I tried to say at once there. All you can do is drift either way, and it's really hard to straighten up.
So at the very start, when I started playing, it said, how do you want to control your car? It said by turning or drifting. I just picked drift straight away because I figured when I played Mario Kart 64, I used to love doing those turbo turns all the time, and I got really good at it. So I figured, I'm a veteran probably, and went straight for the drift mode. But I'm actually not sure how the other one works, if I'm being completely honest.
Okay. I am looking in the settings now that you've said this. Manual drift, I reckon that's what's on, but I might turn that off. It does say you can do gyro handling or gyro handling, so tilting your device if you want. And we were saying last week that it makes no sense for Nintendo on your phone not to have that thing, so the Wii has it. So
Yeah.
I might give that a try just to see what it's like. One other thing I turned off is auto item. Because I don't know if you noticed this, JT. If you're holding onto an item for the express purpose of keeping that item and you go through another box, it uses the item you have,
I
which I
did notice
hate.
that.
You
And
can
I'm
turn
glad
that
you
off.
told me that. I thought I was just going crazy and I was accidentally tapping it. So good to
Yeah.
know.
When you're in first place, you just desperately want to hold like a shell or a banana behind you, right? So you can't
Yeah.
get hit.
Your
And
protection.
it was driving me nuts not being able to do that. But yeah, so JT, um, it sounds like we have had pretty similar experiences because I was saying like I hate the control scheme.
Yes.
It it's weird though, right? Because it as much as I hate it, it hasn't really stopped me from winning. You know, like it seems like this game is so simple that all you have to do is stay on the
Yeah.
road and you're gonna
Well,
win.
and the problem with that for me as well is that obviously it takes a bit of that skill
Mm,
out of it, and the skill gap has been drastically reduced because you can't actually go off the road. There's no, I mean, there's a few parts where you can like miss a jump, I think, but other than that, you can't actually veer off course and then get stuck in the sand or what have you, like you used to in basically any other Mario Kart game. So that is, I guess, part of that. And yeah, it hasn't really stopped me from winning either. Um, but that's probably, I guess, how they designed it. They want people to feel like they don't suck at it.
mm.
But you know, I am enjoying it. It's a great game to have if I'm playing, you know, trying to kill time in the bus or in a waiting room or something. It's really good for that.
What do you think about the like the horizontal orientation for sorry,
The
not
vertical.
horizontal, vertical orientation for the game? Like Timmy was talking about that, and I find it super weird the idea you're playing a driving game and not holding it vertically.
It is weird. Yeah, it's something that I haven't really given much thought to because for me it just sort of works. But whether or not it's better than horizontal, I don't know. I feel like there should be the option for the horizontal because then they could put some, you know, sort of control regions on the side that you can actually use to properly control your car.
That's exactly what I was saying. Like we've seen how racing games work best on mobile, right? So why on earth would you say we're going to go vertical as a point of difference and make it a difficult control scheme? You know, you're the biggest racing brand in the world. You don't need to reinvent anything.
So I haven't done the tilted controls, but if you can't do that horizontally and you have to do the phone tilting vertically, that to me would be a bit unsettling because, you know, naturally when you're tilting your phone, you want it to sort of feel like you're holding a steering wheel, or something sort of lengthwise. Except if you're holding it
Mm.
vertically, it's more like, you know, you're sort of just waving a wand around. It
You
doesn't feel like driving at all.
you have a smaller field of articulation, right? You're going to have to
Yes.
be much more precise, which is very interesting. Hey, now, JT, I wanted to back up to something you said before about you never have to wait with the matchmaking. And I'm pretty sure it's because it's not matchmaking, my dude. I'm pretty sure it's like a lot of racing games, and even when you're competing against other people, it's kind of taking like their times or sort of a lot of
Right.
a lot of it's NPC for a start. I'm certain of it, but
So
like
it's
what
avatars.
and then you are doing like how you have the tiers and one race every however many is like ranked for the season or the month or the week.
Right. Okay.
Now those ones, it's just taking your score and comparing it to what other people have done, and then when you're in the races, I don't know that you're necessarily racing against people in real time. To the
So
point where
this
I really have never got the sense that you are.
right. So to me, Paul, that sounds a bit like the driver task system in Forza.
That's
I
exactly what I
I
was thinking
guess.
of then.
And
Yeah.
if that's the case, then that works. Yeah, if that's what it is, that's great because it's actually a really good way of dealing
Yeah,
with the
it makes sense.
multiplayer, not multiplayer. So the other thing that I'm curious about is because I haven't actually looked into it, is if you know you and I both having Apple, can we matchmake with each other? Can we do a versus? I'm really not sure. I should probably research that. But is that something you've seen or not?
I haven't. Again, I've got it kind of open here and having a click around. It has like you can add friends. So I've got friends and opponents. So I feel like we probably can at like the very least, compare scores.
Yeah.
Oh, hang on. Here we go. It's got a little thing that says multiplayer inbound with a little world token. So you're definitely not playing multiplayer now, but it looks like that is coming.
Okay, cool.
And probably then having someone on your friends list will allow you to do it. So
See, that's where I feel like I'd get the most out of the game is when you're playing with your friends, you can see them and hate them at the same time. You can channel your anger, which is how I remember Mario Kart being best played. So
yeah.
I feel like
And
um,
I feel
one
like
thing
we
I
have
wanted to
like
mention.
we've worked through many of the problems you guys had with Mario Kart Tour in this episode. Like Timmy with
yes.
his phone there and the settings open. Like we've made some real progress here.
I just did also want to clarify a point, because one of my criticisms last episode was that there were like kind of four or five courses total, and they kind of like they might vary slightly or have different things going on, but the courses are all the same. It looks like every week or I think it's about a week, they kind of have different cups that are going on, and then they all reset the next time. And so you do only have like 4 to 6 courses in different orders throughout that week, but then you're going to get new ones each week. So it's kind of just, instead of giving you every course to choose from like a Mario Kart game does, the app kind of gives you a few every week.
Yes. And speaking of iterations of older games becoming new, Paul, you've been playing an old favorite. Tell us about that.
I have, yeah. So I've been playing FIFA 20, which is, as you said, the latest iteration of the annual FIFA series. I think I've talked about FIFA very early on when we did the podcast because I didn't actually play last year's FIFA. I gave that a miss, which was probably a good thing in hindsight. I was sort of more excited and a bit kind of feeling a bit sort of fresher towards FIFA coming into this.
So straight up, my big question regarding the FIFA franchise, because I've played very little. I think I played it once at your house, and it was quite a spectacle. The big criticism for a lot of people on the internet is that it's a reskinned, rehashed version of last year's, et cetera, et cetera. Now, someone who's big on football, do you see this? Is this something that you can attest to, or I mean, what would make you continue to buy the game year after year?
Well, this is an interesting question because in some areas of the game, that criticism is 100% valid, and in other areas of the game, it's not. So, sort of the two big modes of FIFA which people play are career mode, which is their kind of single player, you know, live out your story in the football world kind of thing, where you take control of a team and sort of play through a big career. That mode has been absolutely neglected by EA for years and years now, and it is full of bugs which reappear the next year in FIFA, and it really is a mess. And it's particularly bad this year. I stopped playing that mode a few FIFAs ago, partially because I started playing Football Manager, which, to be honest, is just a vastly superior simulation of like the football world, if that's what you're after.
Just quickly, is Football Manager a reimagining of Championship Manager? Is there any relation?
Yes,
apart from the gameplay.
It is. I'm pretty sure Football Manager was kind of it spun off from Championship Manager when like part of the team left and they didn't get to keep the rights for Championship Manager, so they started making Football Manager. Like it's the spiritual successor to Championship Manager in every way. Yeah.
Okay.
So career mode in FIFA is really a mess, and if that's what you're going in for, like I would probably tell you to stay away. Like I haven't played it myself, but I have heard very bad things about it, and talking to friends who play it, like so many of the bugs are just still there year after year. However, the other big mode, or the biggest mode in FIFA, is FIFA Ultimate Team, which is the collectible card game version of FIFA, where you open packs of cards with players and you build a team, and you can play offline or online to sort of earn more coins to buy more packs. And this one game mode makes more money for EA than any other game they publish by a mile.
Wow.
And so this game mode gets a lot of attention, and it's every year it's updated and changed, and there's new modes in it, and it is constantly supported week in, week out for the entire time that FIFA is out because it makes money. So like, this is really bad. They don't support the parts of the game that are monetizable, and the parts that are filled with microtransactions, they put loads of attention into that.
Would you say, because to me it sounds like, if someone like you who's very passionate about, I guess, FIFA, especially the gaming aspect of FIFA, EA could have their cake and eat it and have that as a separate game altogether, and then just have FIFA in all its glory as it sort of originally was. What do you think the reason for them amalgamating the two into one game is, apart from money? But seems to me like they could have both separately.
I think they probably could. That's an interesting question. Actually, I've never thought of it like that, about splitting the two off. I'm not really sure, to be honest. Like, for me personally, like I said, I've kind of moved to Football Manager now when I want that experience. So, like, it doesn't bother me that the career mode is just bad in FIFA. I just don't play it anymore. I wonder whether they would be concerned that if it was just career mode on its own, it wouldn't sell enough, because the Ultimate Team mode is like super, super, super popular. So maybe they are concerned about that. I don't know. It's a good question though. Actually, I'd never considered that they could possibly release like FIFA Ultimate Team 20 and then like FIFA Career 20.
Yeah, the other part for FIFA as well that I get hearing about you and sort of your other football friends who play it as well is the social aspect of getting together with your friends, having like a FIFA tournament, or having some beers and things like that. Is any of that been lost in the new iterations in the last few years, including this one? Is that something that's still pretty, a big part of the FIFA culture?
Yeah, I think definitely. I don't think that's ever really lost, because you kind of make that yourself. As long as the game works, like you get together with friends and play. Like, I've done it a couple of times already with a friend who has it, and it's that stuff is all still good fun. They've actually added some features which are quite cool for that. So I have my old housemate who I used to live with. We used to keep a tally on the fridge of how many FIFA wins against each other we each had, and they've added a feature into the game now where you can kind of log in with your account on each other's consoles, and FIFA keeps track of the win tally, but it also keeps track of like all your stats as well from all the games you've played against each other, which is, in a situation like this where I kind of have one person who I play FIFA against a lot, it's really quite cool to think that we can just play casually for a year, but we can kind of have a look at what the stats are all across the board.
But a downside to that is fridge companies and paper companies are going out of business everywhere.
Yeah, so there we go. EA have killed the fridge magnet pad company single-handedly.
Well, that's good to see that they're still sort of thinking of their user base, and I guess they have to.
Yeah,
but that's a really cool little feature to add in there.
It is, and like, I want to talk positively about this, about FIFA 20, because the mode I've been playing, Ultimate Team, like I said, is like, it's really well supported. So like, criticism's out of the way for the fact that the other parts of the game are neglected, but Ultimate Team is really good every year. So like I said, it's collectible cards. It's now been sort of ported over into basically every EA Sports game. So if you've played an EA Sports game in the last 5 years, you would be familiar with this concept, because they all have it now, I think. And there is obviously an arcadiness to it, because it's like you're opening packs of cards to get the players and things like that. But
yeah,
the football is still real. Like, you build your team and you play games just like any game in any other mode of FIFA. So I kind of get the real football games, but the thing that really attracts me about it is the way it reflects real life football. So every week there is a team of the week, and they are all the players who in real games around the world played really well, and they all get a boosted card, which for that week is available in PAX, and you can get those from PAX, or you can buy them on the market. And then all throughout the year they have all different kinds of events to represent or to reflect what's happening in the real world. So if a player retires, they'll have like a special card to commemorate that player. Or if in the various competitions that happen all around the world, they have different kinds of cards that are released to kind of, if there's a particularly big grand final or something, well, then there are special cards that come out of that. And as someone who watches a hell of a lot of football all year round, it's really cool to have that in FIFA, to be able to watch a game and be like, oh, that player was so good, I'm going to try and get their card in FIFA because it'll be extra good this week.
Yeah, that's actually a really cool implementation of that as well. And speaking of real as well, I've always found that especially EA sports games, in terms of like graphics and movement and I guess physics of their sports, they've always been like somewhat of a benchmark of technology. And looking at FIFA 20, there's some of the videos I've seen of it already, even though some of them have been bug and glitch videos, which are hilarious. But it looks incredible. It looks so photorealistic sometimes.
Yeah, that kind of stuff is always top notch, and I guess that they have the money to do that stuff. Like there's a lot of those bug and glitch videos come from the fact that in recent years the game has really ramped up its physics system. So now the big change in recent FIFAs, which I've noticed a lot with this one, is that the ball is a separate physics object now, whereas previously the ball was sort of, it always felt like it was just a bit on a string. Like if you ever passed the ball, it was just being pulled to another player, and if you shot the ball, it was just being pulled to the goal. Now there's a bit more
like it had instructions.
Right, yeah. Whereas like now it does feel like it's a bit more chaotic and random. So you can have deflections, and the ball can just kind of go into open space. And that sounds like a really stupid thing to be talking about a good feature, but it really is the case that didn't happen so much in the past, that even a sort of deflected ball, it would always be heading towards like another physics object in some kind of almost magnetized way. And it's really nice now to have, you can have deflections that go in unexpected ways. You can have goals that, as a result of that, you can have kind of scrambles for possession, just like in real football, which you don't really know how things are going to play out. And I really am enjoying that aspect of it. Like you said, it always comes with kind of some negatives because it's a physics system. Sometimes the animations are a bit sluggish, and players can get kind of caught in an animation, and so they're a bit unresponsive. And yeah, that's like that's not so good sometimes. But yeah, in general, just sort of like in summary about FIFA, the last thing I wanted to say was that I haven't spent any real money on Ultimate Team, so the whole thing is geared towards making you spend real money to open packs of cards. You can also buy them with coins that you earn in-game. And you talked before about the market in Old Republic, JT, not being so great. One of the great things about FIFA is that the player base is so huge that the market is really, really fun to kind of play. So you can do things like, if there's a big game coming up on the weekend, I'll often kind of scoop up players from those teams on the cheap, because it's a good chance that they'll have some special like event with them after the weekend, so then they sell for more. And like I'm playing the market and doing things like that to make money. And yeah, in all the times I've played Ultimate Team, I have never spent a single real world dollar, and I have never had a problem getting like really good cards. There's some cards are crazy expensive and you've got to be super lucky to get them, but I've always been able to have really good players without spending any money. So yeah, FIFA is one of my constants. I will probably play it, a little bit all the time for the whole year. That's sort of how it works. But yeah, having not played 19, it's kind of fun to come back to a FIFA now and have it feel a bit fresher. So I don't know, maybe I'll skip FIFA 21 and come back for 22. Maybe that's the better way to do it.
One question I had to you about skipping the game is, of the EA Sports range, the game that I used to really be into was the Madden games, because I'm a big fan of American football.
Mm-hmm.
But I found, after missing a couple, that when I came back, they'd added so many new things in the gameplay that it was totally overwhelming. And now that's because, unlike FIFA, when it's running and kicking and you can you can pass or you can change your direction and stuff. Like soccer, football as a game is simpler than having to swap to playing a defensive player who is roles as blocking or intercepting catches or tackling, and then you might be a running back player where you're running the ball, or you're the quarterback where you're throwing it, and then once you've thrown it, you swap to one of the receiving players, and there are different kinds of defensive maneuvers you can do, spins and jumps and sticking your arm out, or dropping your head, or diving or sliding, or trying to catapult yourself over somebody. There's so much to do
Mm-hmm.
that I felt like, and had developed so much that I was completely lost. I know
Even with
you played a lot more FIFA than I had played Madden when I skipped mine, so perhaps you already had most of the fundamentals. But was there anything that took a little wrapping your head around before you could enjoy FIFA again?
It's a good question. I think it was more maybe the feel of the game more than anything. Like the changes each year are pretty minor, which is one of the criticisms of FIFA, that it's real sort of iterative change, which is true. The changes are minor enough that it doesn't feel significantly different. I don't feel like there's sort of huge new modes I have to get used to. The feel of the game is just a little bit different, that it took me a few hours of playing to kind of get used to how it feels, like to get used to how passing feels and how shooting feels, and to sort of like get my range for those things so I could do them accurately. Apart from that, I think one of the things they did change is they changed like penalties and free kicks completely, and I don't know if they changed that in this FIFA or in 19. And right now, my opinion is that they suck, and I can never do them properly. So maybe that's an example of this. Like, this is a new game mode or a new sort of feature that I can't get my head around. But yeah, no, I didn't find that kind of thing was too bad. They do have like the list of controls now is insane for FIFA. It's like you have sort of on your kind of buttons on your controller, one is pass, one is shoot, and you can basically use every other button on the controller in conjunction with pass and shoot to do a different kind of pass or a different kind of shot. And that stuff has really ramped up to the point where there are like 5 or 6 different kinds of ways you can shoot now, and I kind of still only use like 2 or 3 of them. But I'm kind of able to get by doing that. I'd probably be better at the game if I use the others, but yeah, maybe the controls are a little bit like bloated like
turning into armor.
that.
Need a keyboard for it soon.
Yeah, that's the first time anyone has ever compared FIFA and armor.
Well, PAX has certainly given us a lot to talk about in what we've been playing, or at least taken up our usual playing time. So no need for any other kind of topic today, but how about we look to the future and have a think about what we're going to be playing by the next episode. Should have organized who was going to come in there, or I should have thrown to one of you.
So I'm going to be kind of boring this episode, because I'm going to continue playing FIFA. I'm going to try and finish South Park, like I mentioned last time. I also mentioned last time that I want to get back into those Witcher expansions now that I'm on my desktop PC. I'm still looking to do that. With PAX and everything going on, I haven't really had a chance to sit down and get my desktop set up and going again. So I'm looking to do that. The only thing of difference that I may get into before next episode, I'm not really sure, is I have been hanging out to play Red Dead Redemption 1 and 2. I waited for years for Red Dead 1 to come to PC, and it didn't. I waited for years for Red Dead 2 to come to PC, and now it's been announced for it. So, while waiting for that to come to PC, I think I might try and knock out Red Dead 1 on Xbox. So I may get started on that in the next couple of weeks. I'm interested to see how it holds up, actually.
Yeah, me too. Like, everybody loved Red Dead, but I kind of bounced off of the first one. I don't know if I was just like not sure what I was getting myself into. I wasn't ready for it because I love 2 now. I think that is one of my favorite games that I have ever played. So I'm kind of hoping that they remaster 1 and re-release it current gen, so I can kind of have a go as well. Especially seeing as though Red Dead 2 is a prequel. Now I'm kind of rearing for more of Red Dead to pick up from where that left off.
Yeah, I was kind of hoping that with the announcement of Red Dead 2 on PC, that would be one of those, Red Dead 2 is coming to PC and remastered Red Dead 1 will be, bundled with it and that kind of thing. But unfortunately not. It did get like a patch for, I think, current gen consoles, which just keeps the frame rate consistent. But it's going to be it's an Xbox 360 game, so it's going to be a bit of a step back in terms of visual quality. So yeah, we'll see how that goes. JT, what about you? What have you got lined up?
That is intriguing for me as well. The lure of Red Dead Redemption 2 coming to PC. Something that I'd want to do, probably not by next pod. I will be continuing with the Old Republic, getting into some of the other endgame content because there's a lot of stuff I haven't done. On top of that, there is a slight chance I might be starting Borderlands 3 because I'm a big Borderlands fan. Recently, in the last 6 months, finally played the pre-sequel, which was every bit as good as number 2 was. So number 3 definitely has my attention, especially now that it's new. It has the player base there because that's one part of Borderlands 2 and the pre-sequel that sort of dropped off, relatively quickly, is the amount of people playing that you can drop in and drop out with. So that's something that I'll be aiming to try and play by the next pod. On top of that, I will hopefully be playing this Friday when the two of you come to our house for playing board games. Be able to get into some Decrypto and Organ Attack because those two sounded really, really cool. So hopefully they make their way to our house and I can actually give those a go as well. How about you, Timmy? What will you be getting into?
Well, funnily enough, it sounds like I'll be playing Decrypto and Organ Attack, amongst other things. Like I said, hopefully we can get some Gloom in there as well. But probably the big thing is I've started playing Shadowkeep, which is, of course, the next big Destiny 2 expansion. And it has a lot of significant changes so far. And so I'm going to continue playing that. And then probably next episode, I'll be able to give you my thoughts and feelings about all the different changes there. And it's some interesting stuff. I reckon you guys are going to enjoy hearing about it. So maybe I'll finish Control. That's feeling like it's putting a lot on my plate, but Shadowkeep for sure.
Great. Look forward to it.
Sounds like good stuff. So yeah, that's all the games that we've been playing in the last couple of weeks, and all the PAX that we were PAXing over the weekend. And yeah, so as usual, if you want to get in touch, you want to ask us a question, you want to suggest a discussion topic, you want to give us more tips about how or what settings in Mario Kart Tour we need to change to increase the enjoyment of our experience, you can always get in touch with us via email, discanddice@gmail.com. We are on all the social medias. You can find us at facebook.com/discanddice and @discanddice on Twitter. And so, yeah, as usual, thanks, guys, for joining me. Thank you, Timmy.
A pleasure, as always. And thank you, JT.
Pleasures. It was. I could. I'm gonna have to do that again because I actually.
No.
That's in the episode. Done. Thank you, everybody, for listening. We're going to see you next episode.
We'll be back for some more games.
Games.
I'm sorry.